الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسوله الكريم أما بعد. Dear respected brothers, elders, listeners, once again you've joined us for the Q&A. We'll start with this week's questions. Question number 1. What makes a man a dayyuth? There's a hadith Imam Ahmed rahimahullah has recorded in his book, and Imam Nasa'i rahimahullah in Sunan Nasa'i. There are 3 types of people which Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned that will not enter Jannah. One is a dayyuth, and the hadith explains what a dayyuth is towards the end. Number 2, a lady that imitates a man in her clothing. Number 3, a person that has a habit of alcohol and is continuously drinking and not giving up this habit. Then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was asked that what is a dayyuth? It refers to a husband who does not care, who has not any decency, that his wife is sleeping with other men, and he has no concern, no care, and he has no shame. So this is the meaning of dayyuth. So some ulamas, they take that this is what dayyuth itself means according to what's come in this hadith, and some of them they have generalized this, that if the wife is doing some indecent things, the husband is aware and he's still not stopping, then he is also a dayyuth. So sometimes there may be certain things that the wife is doing which is not Islamic practice, and sometimes even if we say they will not stop, but what we can do is speak about it. So we are fulfilling our responsibility by speaking and mentioning that this is haram, this is not allowed, and in a nice way put it forward that I'm not happy with this. And again remind about this. But if a person sees the wife is doing indecent things and is happy and doing everything the same way, then this person can come in this category, as some ulamas generalize this. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us all the ability to understand. Question number 2. What is the permissibility in doing milad and marching on the streets? Eid Miladun Nabi, known as celebrating the day of birth of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In last 2 weeks ago that I had in the Jumu'ah talk, I had shed light on this mention about according to Sharia, celebrating the day of birth of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So it's very clear the way it's especially being celebrated these days and what is happening. Even those, the group and sect that celebrate the birthday of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, their senior muftis have given fatwas, verdicts on some of the things they worried themselves of what is happening and what level it's got to. It started with poetry, it started with seerah talks, life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Then from there, it didn't stop there. From there, they came out onto the streets and blocked the streets. Then the flags came out. Then after was now the cakes and then the decorations, and then from there some of the other things I would not mention because they're not confirmed. From my understanding, I'm not sure how true it is, so I will not mention those. I will only say those things which I know myself. There's some other things that people have done that each time, each year, there's new things that are being adding on to this, and the ulamas that gave permissibility of this, they worried themselves and giving verdicts that these certain practices should not be done. So it's very clear, doing these things the Sahabas did not do. Of course, we are happy, more than happy, what humanity was blessed with in the month of Rabiul Awwal. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was born. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had given us the final prophet. But celebrating in such a manner, why do we not celebrate? Because we follow the Sahabas and the commands of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If he had said to celebrate it, then we would celebrate. Did the Sahaba celebrate? They did not celebrate. So that we have a strong, very strong evidence. Those that are saying love, you don't need to provide evidence for love, then that is their matter with Allah. We are not answerable for that. But what we have presented, that is enough for us. Why we do not celebrate the birthday of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Number 3, is it permissible to dye our hair? Yeah, it is permissible, however, to dye it black, then this is not permissible, because this can be deception. A person, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned to this effect, a person is not from amongst us that deceives others. So a person that can be 60, 70, they've dyed it totally black, may look younger, may go for a marriage proposal somewhere, and a few weeks later then the new wife realizes I've married a very old man, seemingly thought that he may be in his early 40s, but now what has happened? There can be deception involved. There's certain conditions where it's permissible. They don't apply to us now. A person that is going out for in war, and it could be an old person to put this fear in the enemy, or the person that was very, very young and they've got white hair. But apart from the other colors, is fine. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam had said to Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu's father on the day of the conquest of Makkah, Abu Quhafa, his beard was fully white, and he said, change it other than black. So changing it to other color, then that is fine, there's nothing wrong with that. Question number 4, what is the best way to discipline kids? Very good question. So to discipline children is something that we continue to learn in our life. I met my teacher about 4 or 5 weeks ago, and he mentioned 2 things that I'd like to share with you. He mentioned 2 things, and he said, there are 2 things that you will learn as you go along. You've made mistakes in the past, but you will learn each step something new. Number 1 is when you get married. You may be married for 10 years, 15 years. Some mistakes you've made in the past 5 years, you'd think, okay, I've learned and I'll try and improve myself. Next 5 years you may learn, improve, and decide I would not have done that 5 years ago. Then as you go on, there's always something new to learn and to improve. A person that says, I'm Mr. Perfect, that's not the case. So there's always something. And with children also. Many parents, they think maybe 10 years ago I would not have done this with my child to discipline. And maybe after 15 years they've increased and learned more and more. So he said, and he mentioned about himself, and he was saying to me that I learned certain things even now, which I think is better, that I would use this method to discipline my children and not have used the other. And the same thing that he mentioned about marriage. Now, to discipline children, number one is to have an understanding. Hikmah and wisdom is very important. Without hikmah and wisdom and making the right decision, things can go wrong. Sometimes being overstrict can lead them to be felt very tight, and they struggle, and then once they get a bit of freedom, then they just totally explode. Or being too lenient, this can have its own effect. So we have to look what is the right thing. First discipline that we teach them is about the rights of Allah. We worship one Allah. We have duties and responsibilities towards Allah that we have to do. What are the rights of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is a prophet of Allah. We have some rights towards Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that we have to fulfill. And thereafter, what are the rights of the parents? What are the rights of neighbors? What did Islam teach about discipline? One of the things that I would mention is, which I find commonly, that we mix love with discipline. And the love overpowers discipline and will break the discipline rule and put it onto the side. Let's look at Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his discipline and his love. One example. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his two grandsons, Hassan and Hussein radiallahu anhuma, they were very beloved to him. He really loved them, and we've learned from the narrations. On one occasion, his grandson was having dates, and he was a small child. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam immediately responded that, take this out. Inna la na'kulu sadaqah. The family of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam cannot take sadaqah. And then he made the child take the day out of his mouth. This is discipline. Love still remains as love, but the discipline is there. But what happens, sometimes you think, it's okay, it's a child, let him have earrings, let him have his hair how he wants, let him drink what he wants. If he has a few cans of Cokes, it's fine, he's only a small child. Just do what you like, eat what you like, do what you like. Where love is overpowering, and this puts the child's future in danger. So this discipline is that what are the laws of Allah? What are huququllah? What is huququl ibad? One of the things I found effective is half an hour in the evening time, spend and sit down with them to speak about Islam. This can be in the form of a book. Go through the stories of the Sahabas, the family of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They will learn, they will ask questions. This is what they're going to learn, discipline. They learn about Islam, ask questions about Islam. Again and again remind them about the laws of Allah. If they're going to fulfill the laws of Allah, then it's possible that they will fulfill the laws of huququl ibad, the rights of the people. This is what discipline is. So this is how we have to, and each step we will learn. If we think we're perfect, then maybe each parent should go and ask their children, and they'll give a better feedback. But we learn at each step, we make mistakes, we should be accepting to our mistakes and move on and try and become better parents. And each step we think that we are learning, and maybe later we think we should have avoided certain things and done it in a different way. You can do that again. Can zakat be given in the UK? if the person is eligible, yes, and there are many people that are eligible. You'll be surprised in the UK. There are many people. Our Ustad had his own setup in Batley called Ihsan, where they would go and look for people that are eligible in the UK. If you actually check in our masjid about 7 years ago, we had in Ramadan, we had a course on zakat. And along with that, one brother came, National Zakat Foundation. This is what it's called, where they gave case studies of those Muslims in the UK that were eligible to receive zakat. There was some brother that was not able to get any benefits and was disabled, could not work and has no money. So you'll be surprised, there are people, of course, in the UK that can receive zakat. The condition is, are they eligible? Not everyone in the UK, especially nowadays, is what it would be like before. Many people are eligible to receive zakat. So zakat can be given. The condition is, if they are eligible, meaning the condition that Sharia has laid, they fulfill them conditions, then it can be given to them. 8 recipients in the Quran, which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned in Surah Tawbah. And other conditions like a person being a Muslim, a person not possessing the amount of wealth according to the threshold. So these things, if they're eligible, or if you want and cannot work this out yourself, speak to the organizations and they can help with that. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the ability to understand and spread unto others. Ameen. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun wa salamun ala al-mursaleen.